Hello everyone, welcome back to Bytes of CSE. So in this lecture, we'll be exploring the basics of entity relationship diagrams. So now here is Shashi, and he's enrolled in one of the colleges in India, and Shashi's college identifies him by his name, roll number, course, address, contact number, and date of birth. Now Shashi will take you on a virtual tour around his college and will be showing some of the aspects of how his college functions. Now, Shashi's college has number of buildings, and every building is associated with a building number, name, the courses it teaches, and the subjects that are taught. And now each building can have a number of courses. For example, the technology building teaches courses like BCA, MCA, MTech, BTech, and so on. So, and each of those courses can be identified using a course ID, course name, and the faculty head. Now, as I said just now, whereas a building can have a number of courses, one course can be present in only one building. So that makes the relationship between the two entities, building and course, as 1:many or 1:n. So now this n means where one building can have n number of courses, but the one on this side means one course can be taught in only one building. Similarly, Shashi is enrolled in one of the courses in the university or in the college, and 15 of Shashi's school friends are also enrolled in the same course. So now you understand that one student can enroll in just one course in this institute, whereas one course can have a number of students. In this case, you know at least the course that Shashi is enrolled in has at least 16 students. That's Shashi and 15 of his school friends. So you can interpret that this n side, that is the Shashi's side or the student's side, it belongs to actually the course. Like one course can have n number of students or many students, whereas this one side, when it is connected to this is present in the course side, it means that one student can enroll in only one course. That is, many is to one relationship between student and course. Next, Shashi lives in a hostel. It's not that every student lives in a hostel, but Shashi lives in a hostel since his institute is far away from his home. And in Shashi's college, in Shashi's institute, all the students are given single-seated rooms. So that there will be a cupboard number and a bed number, and every student is given only one bed and a cupboard. Now, no student can ask for extra bed or cupboards, and one room will contain at most one student. So the rooms are not shared. So now you can say that the kind of relationship that Shashi shares with the hostel room is that of 1:1. That is, one room can accommodate one student, and one student can get only one room. Next, here is the activity area of Shashi's institute, and there are a number of co-curricular clubs that are maintained by Shashi's friends. As we can see, the welfare club, song club, yoga club, and debating club. And Shashi can be a member of any of these clubs or any number of clubs as he likes. So the activities are identified by an activity ID, the name of the activity, and who's the president of the activity. Now, Shashi is a member of the song club and the yoga club. So now you can understand that the relationship that Shashi shares with the activity, or the students share with the activities, n:n. That is, one activity can have many students enrolled in it, or one club have many members as a part of it, and also one member or one student can be a member of a number of clubs. That is, many is to many or n is to n. Now, all these clubs, they host monthly meetings where they discuss on different agenda, and every meeting is it is held on certain time and date, and they also have a coordinator for the meeting to conduct. So now if I have to sum up everything, I use an entity relationship diagram. So this is, now this convention which I will be showing you right now is taken from the book of Korth, which, according to Korth, now these are the entities I have discussed so far. So there was a student, like Shashi represents that class of entity which is known as student. Then we had courses, building, room, activity, meeting. So these were the entities in this entire story, and they are related to each other. Now, an entity, according to the book of Korth, it is represented as a divided rectangle. So this is a rectangle which has a divider. Now, every entity is in relationship with the other entities. Like, for example, the student entity is in a relationship, say, enrolled. Now we have to name the kind of relation that the student and courses hold, and it can be anything. Basically, you could have also named this as takes up or whatever. So I have used this enrolled as the relationship name. Now this diamond, this represents the relationship. Whenever there is a diamond between two entities and there are some connectors, it means that this entity and this entity are in a relation. So usually this diamond will have a name that is going to define the kind of relationship that these two entities are in. And now the type of relationship is also defined by the kind of connectors that are used in this diagram. Now see, the connector from this relationship, from this diamond to student, is a straight line connector, which means that student falls on the many side or the n side of the relationship. Whereas if you see the connector that connects the relationship to courses, this is a directed arrow. Now this directed arrow means that this is the one side of the relation. Again, if you recapitulate, one course can have many students, so the n side, so the n will be on this side, whereas one student can enroll in only one course, so the the one side will be on the course side. Next, a building and the course. So we said that one course can be taught in only one building. So you have this one side or the directed arrow side here, whereas one building can house a number of courses. So the relationship that is this diamond contains, the connector from contains to the courses is that of an undirected arrow, which represents the n side of the relationship. Next, if we move on, like the room and the students are allotted to room. Now each room had one student, so the relationship that is allotted, or this diamond, it will have directional connectors on both sides, which will mean that these two entities are in a relationship of 1:1. Next, a student can participate in many activities or many clubs that we have seen just now. So the connector or the relationship connector or the rectangle which we have named participates will have the unidirectional connectors on both sides. So this is the n side and this is also the n side. Now next we have an interesting thing. Now see, we have this meeting entity, And we have this strange looking relation notation which is used here. So this is basically a double diamond or a concentric diamond, whichever you say, and there are double connectors that it connects to the meeting. Now a lot is being represented here. Let's try to understand. So this connected arrow means that this is the one side of the relationship, and as we know that this single line, a line with no directed arrow means that is an end side of the relationship. Now what is the meaning of this double line? So of course, one activity can have many meetings, but one meeting will be related to only one activity or one club, right? So in this case, well, the double line means that, now see, this meeting entity, it entirely depends on this activity. Now if the club does not exist, or if none of the clubs exist, there won't be any meeting, right? And also, the attributes of a meeting cannot uniquely identify a meeting. Say there is some problem going on in the college. Maybe the students are not getting enough fund for the activities. So all the clubs may organize a meeting on the same agenda, and that might be on the same time and date. And also there might be the coordinators might be there might be the same set of coordinators who are hosting the meeting. And also a coordinator cannot since there are so many like one student can be a member of so many clubs, so you cannot say the coordinator itself can be the discriminating factor. So all the three needs to be taken together to actually identify. And sometimes also, even if you take all the three attributes together, it might not be able to uniquely identify a meeting. So what you need extra is the activity ID. Say this activity has every club has got a unique ID. So this activity ID, you might say that this activity ID is a primary key of this entity. If you're not sure of what a primary key is, I have a video uploaded on keys, so I'll highly recommend you to go through that. So activity ID is an attribute that uniquely identifies an activity. So in order to uniquely identify a meeting, probably we will be needing this activity ID to be a part of this an activity ID is to be included in this entity in order to uniquely identify the tuple. So now this is known as a weak entity. A weak entity, and this is known as the strong or the owner entity. This is the owner entity. So a weak entity does not have enough keys to be framed as a primary key, and it needs the primary key of the owner entity to uniquely identify a tuple. So in this case, the double diamond, as you can see, it represents that this the entity which is on the double line side of the diagram, that is the weak entity, and the entity which has a directed arrow towards it, that is the owner entity. And this double line means this weak entity is in total participation with this owner entity, which means a total participation means that a meeting cannot exist, or a particular meeting cannot exist without an activity, whereas there might be a club that does not host any meeting. So an activity might not have a meeting, but a meeting has to be a part of this activity. So this is known as the total participation relation. So total participation. Anyways, so meeting is in total participation in this relationship. So now if you move back, you can also say that one student cannot be a part of the institute if he or she is not enrolled in any course. So ideally, this relationship student is also in total relationship or in total participation in this relationship enrolled. So this line should also be a double line in this case. But if you come to courses or if you consider building, there might be, first of all, building belongs to that one side of the relationship, and there can be a building which has not yet been named or not yet been assigned that for what purpose that building has been created. Maybe that's a canteen building or whatever be it. It might not have any course, it might not teach any course. So clearly the building is not in total participation in the relationship. But in case of courses, well, there might be a course. Maybe the institute has got an approval for a fashion technology course, and the institute, so the course technically exists, but maybe the institute has not yet decided that in which building that course will be taught. Maybe it will form a new building for that, or maybe it will be a part of the technology building. So in that case, you cannot say that course is in total participation with this relationship building. So whenever there is a single line, the single line indicates that the relationship is in partial participation. So that means some of the values of course can exist without a building being assigned to it, and those with double connectors, it means that none of the students or a student the student table will not have any entry of a student who's not enrolled in a course. I mean, technically that person cannot be called a student, right? So that is, this double line indicates a total participation. And of course, the arrow and the connectors, from the connectors you will find out that what is how the relationships are, how the two entities are related, like a 1:n or an n:1 or 1:1, and the diamonds here, it represents the relationship, and this double diamond here, so it represents that the site, the entity which has got this double line connected to it, that is a weak entity, and the entity that belongs to the other side, or the side that has this arrowhead connector, that is the owner entity. So that is all regarding the entity relationship diagram for now, but I will have a few more things which needs to be explored. So before that, and one more thing. Now, if you get something like this is a diamond or relationship that student and activity they share. If you have this kind of a broken line and a rectangle, so this, you have got this date of joining written over here. So sometimes the relationships do have their unique attribute which defines or which explains the relationship. For example, you might say that this relationship can have an attribute known as grade, like what is the grade of the student for this course. So this attribute belongs to this relationship. It is not a part of the student attribute, the student entity or the activity entity, but the relationship entity. The relationship part. And whenever you have to represent an attribute of the relationship, that will be done using a broken line, and this and the name of the attribute will be written inside this rectangle. Now, if we cast a further look at the attributes, say we consider the name attribute of the student. Now, the name can have different parts to it, like a name can have a first name, middle name, and last name. So where the attributes that has got different parts to it, or different like there are 2 or 3 values which are implied in this one attribute, this is known as a composite attribute. And now if you look at this attribute contact, now most of like these days most of the phones are have dual SIM facility. So every student might have 2 numbers. It can be like Airtel, Jio, V, or even more. So in that case, one attribute contact can have many values. So that is known as a multi-valued attribute. And finally, we have a derived attribute. Now say, if we cast a look at this date of birth. Now, if we try to find out the age of the student, we do not have to explicitly ask for it, because you can find it from the date of birth attribute, and you can subtract the date of birth from the current date, and you will be able to get the attribute age. So basically, derived attribute is an attribute whose value is derived from other related attributes. Now this has been taken from Quarth, which is a unique kind of example where, well, this underline means as that ID is the primary key of this relation instructor. So every instructor has a name, and that name is a composite attribute because the name contains the first name, middle name, and last name. Now address is again a composite attribute because address has parts like street, city, state, and zip. And again, street is another composite attribute which will have a street number, street name, and an apartment number. So this is basically a nested composite attribute inside another composite attribute. And next we have a phone number, and these curly braces indicate that phone number is a this is a multi-valued attribute, so there can be more than one numbers. Date of birth is a simple attribute, and this particular this is, if you have seen something like this, it means that age is a derived attribute from this attribute date of birth. Now, if I move on to the Navate representation of the entity relationship diagram, which is more popular, as I can say, because the attributes in this case are not mentioned as you have seen in Quarth. They don't use this kind of convention like the divided rectangle convention, but they use this convention where there will be connectors and there will be ellipses, and each of these ellipses stand for a attribute name. Now this is, I have, the rest are the same, the connectors and the double connectors and double diamonds and diamonds, all the same, but this is where the Navate representation and the Quarth representation differs in case of entity relationship diagram. So, and this is only for the student attribute that I have created according to the Navate convention. So this roll number, I have considered roll number as the primary key. So roll number has this underline. This is the roll number has been underlined. Now this name being a composite attribute, it will have the attribute parts, that is first name, middle name, and last name written like this. Contact, which is represented as a double ellipse or a concentric ellipse, this represents a multi-valued attribute. Multi-valued attribute, this is the composite attribute. Street, as you can see, sorry, address, as you can see, this is a nested attribute. It has got this is a composite attribute, and again street is another composite attribute, which is an attribute of this address attribute, which has got street number, street name, apartment number. Then we have city zip, which is a part of this address attribute. Then we have date of birth, which is again a simple attribute. And now coming to age, which is a derived attribute, according to Navate, you have to form an ellipse with a dashed line over here. So that would indicate that this is a derived attribute. Now, I hope you understand why I have not used this kind of a convention, because I wouldn't have been able to cram so much detail if I had to use this convention. But you just follow the convention which is taught in your institute, and both the conventions are similar and both the conventions are okay. Now, it depends on your choice or your professor's choice which of the convention you prefer. So that is all for the basics of the entity relationship diagram. I will be coming up with more videos on this particular portion, and that's all for today. Thank you for watching.